Well, let's give it up for Scott Snyder and Nick Dragotta, everybody. I just finished reading Absolute Batman #1, and it was a fun one. In this episode, we're going to talk about the writing, all the great surprises that Scott Snyder put in there, the art, including a breakdown of one of the big fight scenes. And I'm going to save the biggest spoiler that I did not see coming until the very end. So you can keep watching if you want to have that be a surprise. I will say there will be some minor, in my opinion, spoilers on the way there. So, as always, you may want to throw this one in your watch later playlist. By the way, if you want to talk more about this, I'm going to do a live stream tomorrow, Thursday, October 10th at 7 p.m. Eastern. First off, the writing. Remember, this is the absolute universe where superheroes are underdogs and Darkseid's rule is law. And it's not canon, but at the same time, at some point, the DCU and the absolute universe are going to bump uglies. So let's get ready for that. And I'll tell you, after reading this, I'm pretty excited to see what happens when this Bruce Wayne meets the Bruce Wayne that we're used to. But yeah, the most important thing, the number one reason that any Batman fan, any comic fan, anybody who thinks that they might like comics or who doesn't think that they would and would like to be surprised to find out that they do, should read this because it is fun. As sad as Absolute Superman looks, that is how fun this comic book is. The plot moves quickly. It doesn't get bogged down in the origin story. It's kind of like spread. His origins kind of spread throughout the comic. And there may be some more coming. It doesn't feel like they fully resolved it. But I will say this. Bruce has a very compelling reason for becoming a superhero because, spoiler alert, his dad, who's a teacher, appears to die, saving him and the rest of his class when there's an attack at a zoo. There may be some guilt for Batman there because Bruce won a competition for designing a bridge based on a bat's wing, a collapsible bridge, and he won that trip for his class. And then his dad, when they hear the shot, his dad puts them all the kids in the bat exhibit and says, no matter what you hear, don't come out, or something like that. And that adds another level. So already we've got the fact that it's his dad. And then we've got of course, it's a bat exhibit because it has to be. Apparently this Bruce just is born obsessed with bats. You can tell that he's interested even before any of this happens. And so there's the element that his dad died. There's the potential guilt that he's the one who won this trip. And then there is this element that his dad, although we don't see it, we just later see Bruce dropping a flower, at the door of the exhibit. We don't see his dad die, but his mom appears to be a single mom. And there's this element of his dad dying a hero. Because later in the book, when Mayor Gordon, who is the mayor instead of the commissioner, is having a town hall and the big gang of the issue attacks, Barbara Gordon, who is a police officer in the Absolute Universe, goes to the door to see what's going on, and Batman drops down and says, whatever you hear outside, don't come out. So I think that was a really smart way to show that he's got additional motivation. It's not just that this horrible thing happened and he's turning his trauma into something to use against the people who traumatized him. He actually wants to live up to his dad's legacy. So Batman's mom, she's a social worker. She's a single mom, and the issue sort of sets up, there's something that Alfred says that makes it seem like maybe she is going to be a vulnerability that Batman's enemies might try to exploit, including Alfred. And that's where the story really starts, after that initial trip to the zoo, where they don't, like I said earlier, it's kind of spread throughout. They don't go all the way into what happens, but it starts with Alfred, and we see that he's got a daughter who hates him. He's been to Gotham, but it's been a while, and he doesn't feel like it really seems as vibrant as it used to, doesn't have a heart. And he's working for some shadowy organization that seems to have questionable motives. They want him only to observe this crazy gang that's just killing everybody, but they're totally cool with him engaging the vigilante Batman who is trying to stop them. In fact, it sounds like they really don't want Batman to stop this gang. And we find out that Alfred, he's been taken off a target that he'd been chasing for 5 years. He was really close. And then they put him on this gang called the Party Animals in Gotham. And he's observing and reporting. There are some great fights. Snyder sets up some great, ruthless villains, literally killing babies, lighting buildings on fire, and listening to the people scream. There's a scene where Maroni and Falcone are talking to the leader of these people wearing the black masks. And he says, and they're telling him basically he's not following the rules, the criminal rules. And this guy, who's a real weird guy, he's got like a little baby wearing a black mask floating in the pool, and it's 3 a.m. There's some lady swimming in the pool and she's got a mask on. So she comes out of the pool and she says, show him the masks. And spoiler alert, I'll just tell you, I mean, if you want to be shocked, he shows him these masks, and he's got George Washington, he's got Martin Luther, all these. He's got one that's supposedly Socrates, and then he's got some of their friends and associates and family members dead, made death masks, put them on display, and then the lady kills both of those guys, Carmine and Falcone. So this is a different Gotham. In the absolute universe, all the people who we know, who ran Gotham in the DCU, they're dead now. Now, I want to save the biggest spoiler to the end, like I said, because that is one that was pretty fun to find out reading it without knowing it was coming. You'll figure it out, I would say, probably about halfway through the page, but it's fun. So let's talk about the art. The art is just as dynamic as I hoped it would be. You can sense the movement. It's just really, really great work. I think that one of the hardest things for artists seems to be really creating that true sense of motion. And Dragotta does that, and it makes it so much better. And to kind of get into that, I thought it might be cooler than just talking about it, to actually look at a page that shows sort of the kind of visceral, intense fight scenes that Dragotta's able to create. You see, he's got this grid-like structure that he uses in a few places, and it's usually pretty effective. It's effective here. There is at least one couple of panels where he's creating this sense of motion. So you see like a little thing coming out of a thing, and then it comes out a little more. And then finally you're like, oh, it's his motorcycle coming through the wall. I think that probably could have been better just showing it from the outside of him coming through the wall. There's a lot of great panels like that where he's got, like, there's one where Batman's jumping down and you see him, so he's great with perspective. He could have done that. I think it maybe was just more a matter of they didn't have a lot of space maybe. But other than that, again, looks great. Here, it works very well. He focuses on these small, quick movements. You hear Alfred narrating, or you read Alfred narrating, talking about how he's got steady hands, and you see the sound effects. It really does bother me when people don't have good sound effects. Like, I remember reading one, I can't remember what it was. It might have been Wonder Woman Dead Earth, where it was just like somebody would grab something and it would just say rip, and I guess punch somebody and it'd be just like punch. That's not cool. But these little talk, it's great. And all this focus on these small movements, it really drives home this like meticulous, controlled fighting style. But at the same time, through Alfred's narration, you find that he's like snapping arms, breaking legs, and doing it on purpose, making it loud on purpose, showing well, just putting on a show. And part of the reason for that is this Batman doesn't have tons of diversions and all kinds of crazy gadgets. So he's really just got to scare the crap out of people. And in this case, he does that and it works. On the next page, he cuts some dude's hand off and uh, everybody's just ready to run. So then, yeah, the pace as you go on, it kind of like accelerates. It's very action packed towards the bottom. All this like color, jagged edges. It feels very intense with like the red and the just very brutal violence. And I love Alfred watching him here. First of all, it's a great way to do some exposition. Tells us that he's made his own martial art form, with Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And it's just, that's a better way to learn about that than, I don't know, some montage or something like that. Alfred talks about how he stabs them, with his bat ears, but he's careful to not hit arteries. So this is a Batman like we're used to, at least in terms of a moral code. And Alfred talks about how, oh, he's an idealist. And you can sense that Alfred's not totally, doesn't feel great about himself. Feels like he says he's done some bad stuff in the Afghanistan war. He's working for this organization that he seems to question them. And when they tell him to go after Batman, he decides to let him cook instead and watches him. I think that at some point, I hope that we're going to see him and Batman team up because he has all the gadgets you would expect Batman to have. He's got a cool motorcycle. He's got a shotgun. There's only 3 of them and it's super deadly. But he's at the same time, even with all that, he's no match for Batman. Batman, in the beginning of the comic, somebody steals his motorcycle. Later, you find out it was Batman. And when he is going to go shoot Batman with that shotgun, Batman takes it. And later, when they meet up again, Batman shoots him in the face with it. But he's made it non-lethal. And then he just drops it down there by Alfred, who, to him, it's ruined. But yeah, this really, you can see, according to Alfred, he's really enjoying this. He's putting on a show. And that is an additional element that we're not used to with Batman, maybe a darker psychological component, because in general, Batman's usually very efficient. He's doing this to get it done. But this Batman, at least according to Alfred, seems to really enjoy it, even though, in spite of his brutality, it's controlled and he does not kill anyone. So yeah, Batman, he's basically, in this universe, he is an artist of violence. His opponents' bodies are the canvas, and his fists and boots and chest axe are his paintbrushes. And he paints a beautiful, bloody picture. So this is going to be a Batman who almost, I think he lives more up to that idea of like somebody you're afraid to run into at night. Because on the one hand, you got a guy who, he doesn't kill anybody. He's he's dressed like a bat. That's scary, I guess. You don't want to run into some weirdo dressed up like a bat. But when you've also heard stories that this guy's going around snapping legs and breaking arms and blowing people up, which I don't know, I guess there's a scene where he sets off some explosion, which I guess that's maybe somehow was non-lethal. Maybe it just trapped them. But yeah, this guy, he is violent. You would be afraid. He will stomp on your leg and snap it. So we're going to see a Batman who is like part protector, part weapon. He's going to be tactically brilliant like we're used to. He's skilled in not only physical ways, but also he got a scholarship to go to the best school, and or I should say the best school in the state. And he then faked an injury, so he didn't have to play football, and he just learned psychology and all these other different things that you would think Batman would want to know. And then he gets a job as a civil engineer, and he's working in the sewers and the waterworks, and he just knows all of Gotham, and really has become, without any money, really a superhero on the level of the billionaire Bruce Wayne. So I love it. I think it's great. I think you will love it if you can just accept it for what it is. It is a different story than the DCU Batman, but it's outside of that continuity. It's in a different universe where there is a huge change here. The hope that drives the normal universe, the omniverse, the life and creation that's driven by the source. It'll be interesting to see what happens in that universe, because now I would imagine that chaos is unfettered, whereas on the other hand, we now have Darkseid, whose dominance and tyranny is now unbounded or unbound, whatever. So now for the big spoiler. This issue has an epilogue. And again, I'll remind you, this was kind of fun to find out. And if you want to go turn this off and find out for yourself, I understand. But it turns out that target that Alfred was tracking, the one he'd been chasing around for 5 years, it's the Joker. And in the absolute universe, the Joker is one of the 30 richest men on the planet. So Bruce Wayne is not a billionaire, but the Joker is. What do you think about that? By the way, if you want to talk more about this, I'm going to do a live stream tomorrow, Thursday, October 10th at 7 p.m. Eastern. So I'd love to see you there. It's been fun doing these videos. I'm going to keep doing them, but it'd be great to meet some of y'all who are watching them. And even if you can't make it, let me hear from you in the comments.